Okay, so today we're going to create this automatic stop box, which is part of a project students are working on right now. So first thing I'm going to do after I open up Creo, let me just set my directory to where I want it to be. And this is going to be MS1004. All right. And then I'm going to start my part. And this part for the project is going to be MS1004-01. I'm going to hit OK. All right. So now that I'm in Creo, this is a fairly challenging part. This is going to take a little bit of thought on how I want to approach it. Now, if you've done some of the other videos that I have on here, and you know a lot of the thought process is, where is my largest profile of this object so I can cut away at it to get the rest of this. For me, if I look at this, I think I've got sort of a square profile here, comes up to a circular curved area here, a flat, then we go up and around over here. So I'm going to draw probably this, maybe more in this orientation, this front plane as best I can, and I'm going to extrude it the full distance of the part. And then we may have to make some adjustments here and there to make it the right size. So this is going to be a tough part. There's going to be both adding material but also removing material depending on what dimensions I want. So I'm going to start with an extrude. I'll hold right click. I'm going to define my sketch. My sketch is going to be on my front plane. You could also go over here and select it. I'm going to select my front plane and I'm going to sketch. And if it doesn't rotate, I'm just going to hit this button up here and rotate it. And now I'm going to try my best to draw this sketch. Now for this object, what jumps out to me is this flange here and this sort of hole that goes right through the middle with the counterbore here seems to be sort of the general centerpiece of this. That's probably the one that the main piece for this is probably bolted to something, and then there's some sort of valve or something that goes through here. So I'm going to focus on that being the center of right here. So I'm going to start by drawing a circle. Okay, and then from that circle, and actually, you know what I should do right away is I'm going to shrink that circle down to the right size so that I'm at the right scale. I don't have to scale a million different dimensions here. So let's see if we can find the center of that circle. Looks like that circle's 3 inches in diameter. And then I'll hit refit to bring it to 3 inches. Now I'll just zoom out a little bit. Now to finish off that profile, start from here. It's going to come down. It's going to go over, down, over, then up, and then over, and up again. And now I need to add a circle in here. So I'm going to bring a circle in. I'm going to hover over this so it lines up with it. I'm going to bring that circle right over like that. And then it looks like it comes right down tangent to this. So I'm going to come over here, come up to here. I'm going to make that tangent. And then I'll go up here and make that line vertical. So it kind of does that sort of thing. Now I'll trim away what I don't need. So we'll trim that away, trim that away. I'm going to leave that 3-inch dimension. All right, then I'll continue trimming. Get rid of that. And I think if I middle click, that'll bring back, or I can hit this big white arrow. I can middle click, and that'll give me that profile. It's not totally accurate yet, but that's okay. I'm going to add those dimensions in. So a lot of this video is going to be searching for dimensions because that's the tough part of this part. So I have, let's see, a 2.88 dimension from the center to the outside there. I have a 3 for my diameter. That's good. Gives me a thickness of 0.76 for that flange on the bottom, the mounting surface right there. And then let's see, what else do we have? I have a full width that I could use to cut away if I want. I think I'm probably going to actually just extrude that out. And let's see what else we have. From the center to the bottom surface is 1.62. All right, let's start putting these in. So I'll go dimension from the center, the bottom surface. Right there is going to be 1. I'm going to need a thickness there. I'm going to need a full width of this. I'm going to need, let's see, does it give me a center point? Yes, it does. It gives me a dimension from here to here. Does it give me a diameter or a radius for the outside here? It gives me a radius for up here. And does it give me a distance? Yes, it does, from center to center. And then I've got this little cutout down here. It does give me a dimension for this. Alright. And this should be, let's see what this dimension's messing around with us for. If I modify it. Bear with me. Modify this, what's it moving around? I see. So we need to find the distance from the center to the other side. Oh, it does give me that. It gives me it right here. Okay. So now we'll go through this guy. And let's start with the top right corner. So from center to center is right here. It's 3 inches. The radius of this cutout is 1.24 right here. So let's put those in. 3 inches. Let's drag this guy back up. 1.24. I have distance from the center to the bottom of 4.5. I have a distance down here of 0.24. I'll show you where I found those. 4.5 is right here. 0.24 on the bottom. And let's see what else I have. That's good. From the center to the very bottom is 1.62. You can see that right here, hidden right in here. And if you feel like it, you can take a big screenshot of this so you can work off it if you don't have it handy. Let's see what else I'm missing. My full width is 5.76, and the width to the side is 2.88. And that's going to give me my profile right there. So now what I'm going to do, and this is kind of tough, I could do this a couple different ways. I can extrude this the full distance of this center point, because I know I'm going to need this 7-inch dimension somewhere. So I could do that, or, which would then make me have to extrude these little pieces on the end. Not the end of the world if I have to do that. Not necessarily the best way to do it. But I think what I'm going to do is probably extrude the 7-inch and then work on the remainder as I need to. So let's see. I get my 7-inch here, and I have, does it give me a distance? Yes, 0.38 right here. So you know what? In that case, why don't we just do the whole thing, and I'll show you a way we can get that 7-inch in there afterwards. So let's go, okay. Let's switch this to a symmetric. Not that it matters, this isn't a symmetric part, but let's go 7.76. That'll put my datum in the middle. I'm going to create some datums later anyways. And then let's hit OK. I'll hit the checkbox. And we'll rotate this. There's my first feature. Now from here, I need to do some cutting away. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is I'm going to cut away this back surface here. All right, so I'm going to take away that 0.38 that was here. All right, and if I do a little math, 0.38, that means there's 0.38 on the other side as well. This is 7.76, and there's a 0.76 difference. 0.38 plus 0.38. Apologize for the bell. 0.38 plus 0.38 equals 0.76. That means both ends stick out by that 0.38. So here's what we'll do. Move this over to my other screen. We'll do some cutting. Let's go extrude. Let's define our sketch. Let's bring this side in first. Why not? So we'll sketch on there. And I'm going to use a reference. So I'm going to click references up here, or the other place you can get to it. You can hold right click, go to references. I'm going to pick this outer circle here. I'm going to add my circle to it. Then I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to make it a cut. I'm going to flip it the other way. But then I'm also going to flip this out here. That's going to remove everything other than my sketch. And now I'll say 0.38, and that'll bring that back so that my little flange piece sticks out a little bit. Okay, and I'll have to make more cuts after, for sure, before I put the flange on. Now, from the other side, here's what I'm going to do. This is going to be a little tricky. I'm going to make an extrude, and this is how I'm going to get that 7-inch dimension. I'm going to pick, I'm going to go up to model. I'm going to create a plane. I'm going to pick this surface, and I'm going to offset it 7 inches in the other direction. So I'll go negative 7 inches. That brings me back to the surface that I want to cut the back end up to, but it'll also give me the 7-inch dimension to show in my drawing. So I'll hit OK. I'll go back to my extrude, and I'm going to place my sketch on this surface. The sketch. Do the same thing as last time. Hold right click, go references, add that in. I'm going to take my circle, place it right on there. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to do the same thing. Cut, flip the direction, flip that, and this time instead of putting a number in, I'm going to go up to surface. And for my surface, I'm going to pick that datum. Alright, so now when I hit OK, notice what happens if I edit this. I now have a 7-inch dimension there. That's going to be good for when I make my drawing. Okay, now I've got to cut the rest of it back. Okay, because both ends have a little circular piece that stick out. One of them has a little flat on the top. That gets me started. So now I have my full width of my piece here. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to cut back so that this object, this little piece that sticks out there, is the right size. So let's see if I can find some dimensions here on where this guy is. So it goes 2.76 from the very end, and then it is 3 inches thick. All right, so I'll have to do some math for the other side for sure. And this piece may have been easier to make if I had just made a bunch of extrudes, but I don't necessarily like doing it that way. I like cutting away because you're more likely to get dimensions that are more valuable for the machinist, which is ultimately what we're trying to do. So 2.76 from the other end, which is actually this end because it's oriented like that. So here's what we'll do. We'll create a sketch. We'll define that sketch. We're going to put it on this surface. We want it on that front surface. We're going to sketch. Okay. And now I need to add, let's see, I could do this a couple different ways. I could do some references if I wanted, or I can just make the section I want to cut out. Why don't I do that way? I kind of like that way better. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add some references. I'm going to add this line across. I'm going to add this line up because that's sort of where my corner comes from. I'm going to add this circle. Add this, add this, add this, add this. And you can see what I'm doing. I'm kind of tracing out the outside edges of my shape. And here's kind of how my object looks. So if I start from up here, comes down, comes over, then up, then over. And here's where it gets tricky. This actually comes up tangent to that circle. So I'm going to go up like this, and I'm going to get a tangent constraint in. You can see my tangent constraint right there. All right, now before I continue, I'm going to put my two circles in. That one there, this one up here. Now I can bring my line down. And I'm just letting my grid kind of snap for me. And then the only thing I have left is just this vertical point. All right, now once I trim, you notice there's no dimensions on here because I just used references. Okay, so I can trim away this line and this line and this one and this one and this one all the way until I end up, now I'll just middle click to get out of that, this little section here. This is what I'm trying to cut away right here. So now what I can do is I can hit OK. I can make it a cut. I can flip the direction. All right, and like I said, my drawing said it was 2.76 from that side. Now, I can do a couple different things now. I know from, here's that 2.76, I know from this that this is 3 inches thick. Okay, so I can do a little math, or work smarter, not harder. I can do a little analysis. So let's go analysis, measure. We'll measure from this surface. We'll select that surface. We'll hold control and we'll select this surface. And right now the distance is 5. Okay? We can see on our drawing it's supposed to be 3. So that tells me I need to make a cut from the other side, very similar to the other one. That's 3 inches, or sorry, 2 inches deep, which will leave me with 3. Okay? So I'll get out of that. Now we'll go back to model. I'll just middle click to get out of that. We'll go back to extrude. And we're going to draw on this plane again. I'm going to do the same thing I did last time. Right click, references, this, that. And I like to set up the references first. It saves you a lot of time. You don't have to go around making everything collinear and everything. So we add all that. We'll close out of here. And I'm just middle clicking, by the way, to close out of this stuff quicker. I'll add my circles in. We'll do it a little different than last time. Add my circles in. Oop, accidentally closed out my circle. And I'll add my line in. Down here, over, and from here down. Ooh, I forgot a reference. I'm going to middle click, hold right click. Ooh, sorry, I'll just go up there. Forgot to add that one in. That one's kind of important. So now I can go line down to here, over to here, down to here, just like that. You can see how those references save me some time. Now I'll go to delete segment, get rid of that. This one's got a bunch to get rid of. There's all these references. Alright, then I'll middle click and you can see there's my cutout again. Now I'm just going to hit OK, make it a cut. I'm going to flip it. I'm going to say 2 inches. Alright, and then we'll hit OK. And now we'll do a little check. So I can again go to analysis, measure, surface. I like to pick surfaces, by the way, because it it continues the surface like it's infinite, so it'll give you a naturally parallel dimension. Look at that, 3-inch distance, that's 100% right. Or the other thing I could have done, by the way, why don't we do that now actually, is I can go back into my extrude, I can right click, extrude. If I want that 3-inch dimension, let's do this. Model, plane, from here, we'll make it 3. Okay, there's my 3-inch dimension. Now we'll go back to my extrude, and instead I'll go up to selection, up to that datum plane. All right, now when I hit OK, look at that, my extrude hides my datum right in there, but if I edit this extrude to see what dimensions I'm going to have, look at that, 3-inch dimension right there. Perfect. That's probably a better dimension. It's easier to verify what's there than what's not. So that works. So that brings us to our next section of this, which is now we have sort of the general shape. Now I've got some cutouts and some flanges. On this side I've got a little cut. Let's make that one first. That's going to be a really easy one to make, which is just we're putting a little flat in here. The flat is 1 inch up from the center, it looks like. Must key into something maybe. And then it's 2 inches back. So let's do that. Model. Make sure I'm looking at this thing in the right way. It's going to be back here. Extrude. Right click, define sketch. Put it on this surface. Right. I want my right to be my right. Oop, no I didn't. My mistake. I forgot I spun it around. So we'll go left. Sketch. So all I did was just hit sketch setup, and I flipped it there. All right, so again, references. References are real handy. They save you a lot of time. And then I will add a circle and then a line across that top of that circle. Make sure it doesn't snap to anything. See how it's snapping to the midpoint there? I'm just going to make sure it doesn't snap. And just go across. Delete. We'll delete all these things down here. That'll leave us with the flat. And then I could either give a width or I could give a distance to the center, which is what it gives us, which is 1. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to flip the direction, which will make it a cut, and we're going to cut back 2 inches, which will bring it right up to that surface, just like that. We'll hit OK. All right, so we're done with that flat. Now on the other side, we have a flange. So we're going to add that in. We actually have 2 flanges on this part, some type of valve block probably. There's a flange over here and one over here. So I'll show you the technique that I would go through to make that. So the first one is just right on this surface. Notice, by the way, before I forget to mention this, notice how I'm saving all the holes for last. That's really important because if I need to add some holes in and then I add an extrude on top of it, I may end up filling part of the hole inadvertently. So do all of your cutting of your solids and things, unless you have to put a hole in order to make another cut, just save them till the end. Holes and rounds, chamfers, things like that, all that stuff can go in at the end, unless it's a specific reason that you can't. For example, maybe you need a round and then you need to cut away part of that round or something like that. But that's not the case in this part. So we're going to start with an extrude. And I could do the define sketch, or I can just pick the surface. It's usually pretty good at orienting it right for you. Again, I'm going to add references. And then I'm just going to hit close to get out of there. Now, here's how I would make this. I would draw a circle over here. I would draw a circle over here. I would make both of them equal. Okay? Then what I would do is I would put a line. I'd hover over the edge of this, and then I'd come over to here and make sure I get a tangent constraint. Do the same down here. Notice how I'm not lining up with the center point too, like that, because then it's going to lock it in place. I want both of these to be tangent. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same over here. Tangent. Just a little off center. Tangent again. And then don't forget, you also need this circle here because we're going to need to trim it away. Okay, so there's our general shape. Now let's do a little trimming. So we'll get rid of these 2 arcs here. Get rid of these 2 arcs here. Make sure not to hit the center point. That'll get rid of the whole circle for you. Then we'll get rid of these 2 here, and these 2 here. And if I middle click, now I've got a flange shape. Okay, so that's a good start. Now it gives me a dimension from here to here for the center of those, which is 3. Right now it doesn't want to change because we need to change some arc sizes. So this radius is 0.76. Ooh, look at that. That wasn't tangent. So why don't I go back and do all that? Let's go tangent, this line, this circle, this circle, this line, this line, this circle, this circle, this line. Now let's go and change it. 0.76. Okay, it's a little wonky, but we're getting there. This will be 3. All right, and then I also need to tell it that these two circles are symmetric of each other. Okay, because you can see right now, I have this other dimension hanging out here, which is going to move them from one side to the other, which tells me that it's not centered. So I have a couple ways I could do it. I'll show you a quick way. We'll put a center line right down the middle. Then we'll say symmetric. This point is symmetric across that center line to that one. And that'll get rid of it. And now if I modify this, notice what happens. They go equally out in both directions. All right. So 3 and 0.76. The other way I could do it, I could have put a center circle or anything like that. There's a number of different ways you could do it. But I kind of like this way because they're both on the horizontal axis. So we'll hit OK. And then I'm going to flip the direction. And I need to change the thickness. Does it give me my thickness somewhere readily available? It does, 0.76. So if I pop that in there, I hit OK, and there's my flange on that end. Now I'll put the one over here as well. So let's go extrude on this surface. And then let's see what it gives me. It gives me a dimension. It's real confusing the way this is dimensioned. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't intentional though, because we do want to make this require some thought. So this says for me, real confusing here, but 4.76 goes across here, looks like to the front surface, to the center of this. Alright, so that's where it's located. So I definitely want this flange as one of my references. Right click, reference, add that in. And then let's see, does it give me a height where it goes to the center here? 1 and 2 to each side. But based on how this part functions, it looks like this center, yeah, look at that. This center is right on the center of this axis here. Okay, so that's not a problem. I can use that. And actually, look at that. My axis is already one of my references. So the center point of this flange is going to be right on this axis. All right, and I may put a reference dimension in just to make it more clear. So now let's build that flange. Let's go circle, and then another circle, and then one below. Notice how I'm getting these vertically lined up. See that dotted line that's popping up? But I'm making sure I don't put it on a line I don't want to. I don't want it on that line. So I'll draw one more there. Now I'm going to make those two equal again. I'm going to add some lines in to make these tangent. Click. That one's being a little difficult. There we go. Alright, so I'll middle click again to get out of that. Now I gotta look where my tangents are. Tangent, this one is tangent, but this one isn't. So this and this. See that little tangent icon right there? That's what I'm looking for. I don't have one here. Have one there. Don't have one here. Have one there. Don't have one here. Got one there. Okay. So now the next thing I need to do is I can make these centered again. So that was one way I showed you. I put the center line before. Let me show you a different way. You could go construction mode, circle, Draw yourself a construction circle that goes to the center of one of these, or at least it was supposed to. Make the circle and your points. Ooh, man, way out of whack there. Let's see how big this is. This is going to be 2. All right. Let me try that again. That's not working as well as I wanted it to. So make my construction circle. Interesting. On there. And then I'm going to make this point also coincident with it. There we go. Now the radius of that circle is 1. I'm actually going to put a diameter in there. So let's click it. Right click. Replace. Click. Click again. Then middle click. Now I got a diameter. Alright, now that center circle, let's see. They don't make it easy to see these guys. Looks like this is actually going to be 2 itself. And these are going to be 0.38, radius 0.38. Let's get rid of that 0.38. There we go. That looks better. Now I can do a little trimming. Trim that away, trim that away, trim that away. Trim that. And I'm basically just making the outline of my flange. There we go. Probably didn't even need that circle from earlier, but that's okay. And then from the flange to there, like I said earlier, was 4.76. So 4.76 from here to here. And then, alright, so then I have my object here. Looks like everything's defined. I'm going to hit the checkbox, and now I need to figure out how much this guy sticks out by. So let's take a look over here, see if we can find it. You've got a line that comes down here, but they don't make it super obvious. So we've got a line that comes down here that's sort of forming our corner of our box. But again, it's not making that number super apparent. Here's the width of our box, 7.5. So I guess I could do a little math here. So I have 7.5. Let's bring our calculator up. 7.5 minus 2.88 to get to the center there, minus 3 to get to the center of that, minus our radius of 1.24. 0.38. That's how much that sticks out by. So let's make this 0.38. That looks pretty good. I can hit my checkbox. All right. And that looks pretty darn good. So now what I need to do, I need to put a whole bunch of holes in here. All right, so let's go through and throw all these holes in. First, let's put the hole in right here that gives the whole center of our object. So I'm going to pick my axis, I'm going to hold control, I'm going to pick this surface. And this hole, if we look here, is a counterbore hole that says is 1.75 3.76 deep, and then there's a hole on the back end of it, and I can take my calculator again to figure out what the hole on the back end. 1.25 plus 1.247 divided by 2, that gives me what that nominal number is. So let's go to our standard hole profile, and I'm going to add a counterbore. My normal hole, 1.2485, is going to go all the way through. And then in my shape, that number looks awfully off. I wonder why that is. Oh, because my counterbore is huge, that's why. Yeah, the hole looks okay. So let's go 1.75 for the counterbore, and it's going to go 3.76 deep. That looks good. I'm going to hit the checkbox, and there's that hole. Okay. Let's add the hole that goes up here. All right, it's going to be right in the dead center of that axis. So let's go hole, and then I have no axis here at the moment, so I'm just going to go model, axis, throw it right on top of there, hit OK. I'm going to go back to my hole. Now it'll be on that axis. I'll hold control, pick that surface. That hole up there is same thing, 1.2485. Some valve that's that size seems to be used in a lot of places. So we're going to go all the way through. I'm going to hit OK. Now we're done with that hole. Now we need to add the hole that's going to cross with this one that we just put in. So let's go hole. Again, I'm going to go model, axis, and I'm going to find my center axis just by picking that surface. Hitting OK. Go back to hole, hold control, pick that surface. Now this hole here is 0.875 plus 0.873. Well, the middle of that's 0.874. Okay, so I'll do that. And then this one I'm going to say drill up to next surface, which will drill it till it breaks through to that hole. I can switch to wireframe so you can see. You can see it's going to drill right through until it breaks into that hole right there. So hit OK. There's that hole. Okay, and I think that covers all of, and you know what? I missed something there. So let's edit that hole. Let's right click, edit definition. Let's add a counterbore to it. So standard hole, add a counterbore, and that counterbore, I forgot to mention, was 1.25, and it goes 2.5 deep. Wow, that's pretty darn close. And we'll hit OK. All right, so now all we have left is some rounds and some mounting holes. Let's throw those mounting holes in. So let's go hole again. This one, again, I can go model, axis, pick that, hit OK, back to hole, hold control, put it right there. And this one is going to be a threaded hole, so I'm going to hit threaded. It is a 7/16 -14, and it goes 0.62 deep, it says. Let's see where that brings us to. Pretty darn close to breaking through. So we'll hit OK. Ooh, I'm going to go back and edit that. I don't like those notes, so I'm going to turn the note off. We'll hit OK. There's my hole. Now I'm going to pattern it. So right click, pattern, axis pattern. Pick the axis. We only want 2 of them. And we don't want them 90 degrees apart. We want them split around 360. So I'm going to flip it to the 360. I'm going to hit OK. There's my second hole. Now I need one for this flange. Hole. Model. Axis. Pick the surface. Hit OK because we want it right in the center of that hole. It's on there. Now we're going to hit control, move it up there. This one again is a threaded hole. It is a 3/8-16 UNC hole. So let's go 3/8-16. This one goes 0.62 deep. And we'll hit OK. Ooh, and again, I forgot. I'm going to hold right click, turn that note off. Can't stand those 3D notes. All right, then I'm going to pattern this one again. Pattern, axis, pick my axis, 2, and then I'm going to flip it to be around 360. There's my 2 around 360. Hit OK. There's my second hole. Okay. Now the last holes I have are my mounting holes, which are a little tough to find. There's one in each corner. but they're not equally spaced. Why, I don't know. But apparently the thing it mounts to does not have holes that are equally spaced there. So I have 4.24. Apologize for my bell again. We're going to create a hole. I'm going to rotate this guy around. 6. Oh, look at that. It is interesting the way that they do it. So I could put these in 2 separate patterns, actually. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is probably like this. So I'm going to put one in here. I'm going to drag this to this surface because that's one of the dimensions they give me. I'm going to drag this to this surface. That's the other one. From here, it's 0.76. In the other direction, it is. Oh, I had it 1 second ago. Where'd it go? 1.5. No, that can't be right. That one's definitely not 1.5. I see what's going on. Alright, you know what? I'm going to do this a little differently than I normally would. We're going to do these with an extrude because they're in such a weird pattern. So we're going to extrude. We're going to extrude on this top surface. Now, I have one here. One here. One up here somewhere. We'll line them up if they need to. And one down here somewhere. Now I'm going to make all these equal. I normally wouldn't do this way. But this is just going to be the easiest way to do it. Now I'll add a dimension in down here. Click. Click. Make sure I get a diameter 656. Now my dimension from here to here is 76. Oh, they actually don't give me that on this end. So let's go from here to here is 1.5. From here to here is 4.76. Now from here to here is 1.5. This is a terrible way to dimension this, by the way, which is why I'm having such a tough time finding it. That's 4. And then from this to this, 4.24. And then we're missing one more. From this to this is 0.76. Alright, now, I hate this dimensioning scheme. This makes no sense. We have some coming from down here. We have some coming from up here. If I was designing this part, I would redesign it. I don't know if this dimension is very important, perhaps, as is this one. It looks like they probably are based on nice round numbers they are. So we're not going to move them. But if I was designing this, I would pick a corner and dimension all of them from one corner. Because right now this is coming from 3 different corners. So either way, we'll hit OK. We'll make it a cut. We'll flip the direction. And we'll go through all. And that'll just have to do for now. Since there's just not a nicer way to do that. Alright, so now all we have left is a whole bunch of rounds. Alright, which will certainly be challenging. So what I recommend first is save, if you haven't already. Then we're going to add a lot of rounds in. Alright, now the way that we put these rounds in is very important. Okay, because I need to make it so that these rounds kind of follow their way around certain corners and things. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to hit all the transition areas. So this is one right here. It's going to be 0.12. I'm going to hold Control. I'm going to add that one in. Let's see where else. Is there anywhere else where things are transitioning? Here. Oh, you know what? There, there, there. And then I'm going to get rid of that one. So there and there, right here for sure. And the only other ones, we'll get them in the next round. So this looks pretty good. So I'll hit OK. That'll put those rounds in. I'm saving as I go round again. Now we're going to go here, which will go all the way around that, which is what I wanted. We'll go up here. Not sure how happy that's going to be with me in a bit, but we'll see. There. Go all the way around there. Hold control, get there as well. That looks like that's going to get me around all those edges. Let's see if it'll go in. It does. Look at that. I was afraid of that one. Now the rest of them are pretty easy. So my other rounds would be here. And notice I'm hitting control the whole time. Very important because it has to go under one set. There. There. Sometimes you're better off just splitting up your rounds. Have some patience. With those, I'll actually put these in as well. I'll put one under here as well. And if I do all those, I think my last couple rounds will go in okay. Go like that. And then I'll put rounds in here. Notice how it follows those curves around now. That's what we're trying to do, is set it up so it would do that more easily. One down here, one down here, there, there. That's pretty darn close. And then I just need one around this. It looks pretty darn good. And actually, looking at my part now, this will be a good exercise. Let me save. But looking at my part, I actually missed a part. I missed this hole right up here. All right, that comes up from the bottom. So I've got to add that in for sure. So here's how I would do it. I'd take my cutout here, bring this all the way back above all the holes. Then I'm going to add my cutout in here. I'm going to add a hole actually to cut this out. I'm going to put it right on this surface. I'm going to flip the direction so it goes up. Alright, so this goes from the center of that axis, 1.62, and then from the end of the flange is 4.76. That must line up with my flange over here. So I'll put that in, I'll say through all, it'll make my little cutout there. And then I can go back, drag it down to below all my holes. And now I'll add that hole from the bottom. What does it tell me? It tells me that I have a counterbore on the bottom that's 0.5 deep. It's interesting how they dimension it. 3/8-16 hole. And then a counterbore on the far side that's 0.5 deep. So let's go hole. Set it up. 3/8-16. Do everything. Through thread. And I'm going to also hold control and pick that top surface. Forgot to do that. So that's going to go all the way through. And then I'm actually going to make my counterbore. Oops, sorry. Got ahead of myself. I see what they're saying. That actually goes through to next. And that thread goes down until it breaks into there. But this actually, if I added this guy, was supposed to be the counterbore. So let's change the diameter of that to That's not right. That is supposed to be 1. Okay, interesting. All right. And I'm also going to get rid of that note before I forget. All right, so now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to drag this down to all my rounds. All right, I'm going to find what won this round as part of round 1. All right. So somewhere in here, that's probably a good one. I'll edit that one. I'll add this in as well as this. And now I can drag these back down, bring all the rounds back. And now I can save it, and I'm done with this part. Took a little while, but this is a very challenging part. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. We're only modeling probably about half of the time, but taking that little bit of thought, set it up where now when I make my tutorial to make the drawing, it's going to go much easier because we're going to have all the dimensions that we need. Okay.